Hello everybody, it is Whiskey with Whiskey's Gaming Lounge. Earlier today I received a notification on Facebook from War Thunder indicating that the new Knights of the Sea Naval Battles teaser trailer has finally come out, and Gaijin from War Thunder has given us their idea for naval battles and how to implement them into the War Thunder game. I watched the trailer and it looks pretty interesting, but there's some things that I think are interesting to note. So let's go ahead and watch this trailer.
Peggy 12.
And I'll try and not comment too much through it. Real in-game footage, good to know. Looks great, at least this part. That, not so much. People on ships, wargaming. Need to pay attention. Bismarck. It's like third grade level textures. Ah! Combined ops. Of course it would be the Russians. Of course. Look at those ships. Wow. That ship has a hole. PT boats. Alright. Bring it on. Now it's Russian, but bring it on. That's kind of a cool effect. Gonna have to shoot at PT boats in my battleship now? Is that what's going on? Should be kind of interesting. And of course it's the Russian Navy. Oh, but wait, there's more Russian ships. Knights of the Sea. What a cool name for a naval battle thing. So if you're like me, you watched that video, and, well, you were pretty well entertained by it. I mean, I look at it and I'm like, okay, I'm good with this. I mean, it looks pretty good. And for those of us who have, come from the World of Warships, it looks like it's a very interesting concept. But the part that really caught my attention, and the part that really frustrated me as a World of Warships player, can only be found on the actual thread page, or on the actual announcement page for War Thunder. So here it is. Of course, here's the teaser up here at the top part, and of course we got the usual teaser shots of PT boats. And we've got the packages that you can buy into. Heck, you can buy John F. Kennedy's PT-109 for $32. Then the Naval Starter Pack is $25. And now, of course, this is the closed beta, so as with all things, everything is subject to change. However, I do want to draw your attention to some things. Of course, it tells us not to forget to check out the frequently asked questions. So let's go through them. When does it begin? This year. Excellent. How do we get in? Well, you get invited or you buy in. That seems pretty stereotypical at this point in time. In fact, that's exactly what you had to do to get into the closed beta for World of Warships, which I did, by the way. And won't be for this one. When will open beta start? 2017. Okay. What types of boats will be added and for which nations? During the closed test, we will gradually fill the naval line, which will take us to the start of the open test, where we anticipate having enough boats of all 5 ranks for every major nation. We also plan to add new naval modes and locations for a closed test. So far, so good. If you're not familiar with the War Thunder mantra, there are battle ranks. There's 5 of them, I believe, or more, that I believe is what they're talking about when they're saying they're going to fill them. It's been a while since I played War Thunder, but I just remember there loosely being a tier system. It's not really tiers. Battle ranks was really confusing when they switched from actually having tiers, but whatever. Oh, what's this question? Will larger ships, cruisers, battleships, and aircraft carriers be available for player control? If not, why do we need torpedoes? Sit down if you're not, because this is depressing. Larger vessels, while not available for control by players, but will be presented under the control of AI in some game modes. One of the main tasks of combat torpedo boats will be the destruction of larger ships. Player-controlled destroyers and other large ships may appear later in other game modes. It will be decided based on the results of closed beta. So we know for a fact that in the closed beta, they have given up the idea of being able to play a cruiser, battleship, or aircraft carrier. That's just, poof, gone. Just cross it right off the table. They do say that player-controlled destroyers and other large ships may appear. So we're not even sure we're going to see destroyers in this. So basically what we saw in the trailer, out of all of that battle, the only part of it that we will have any influence in is the PT boats. Really? Really? PT boats. You want me to buy into your closed beta to play PT boats? Oh no. But wait, there's more. As you can see, there's this more clarification to large ship naval battles, which I already have multiple windows open of, I guess. In this, basically, they spend this entire long thread talking about the reasons why they don't plan to include cruisers, battleships, and aircraft carriers into this game, and possibly even destroyers. Basically, their justification for it is that, well, because the guns on all of these big ships had such long ranges, you know, several, like, 30-plus kilometer guns, especially in the higher tier stuff. I think the Yamatos were like 48 kilometers or something like that. Not that you could actually shoot that far because, you know, radar was pretty primitive and visual was very difficult at those ranges, even with the advanced Japanese optics. But because of the distances involved and because of the relative speeds involved, there's just no way to feasibly add these into the game without making some very serious compromises in gameplay. Okay. And then they go on to say that basically in terms of game mechanics, that these larger ships, it would suck to be in one of these larger ships, take a torpedo and watch your ship slowly die. As if for some odd reason torpedoes are the end-all be-all of destruction of naval ships. They certainly played a huge role in doing it, but it certainly wasn't the only way to sink an enemy ship. And of course they assume that there was no such thing as damage control parties, and that if you took a torpedo, poof, you're done. Obviously not entirely true. Even the very flawed Yamato battleship, the class of battleships, the Yamato and the Musashi, when they took torpedoes, one torpedo ripped a 200 freaking foot long hole in the side of the ship because of the faulty joint at the armor belt, the upper and lower armor belt. That still didn't sink those ships. It took like 14 torpedoes and a crap ton of bombs to accomplish that goal. Whatever. But wait, there's more. Oh, imbalance in nations. We aim not only to give you the very existence of warships in War Thunder, but also to create highly interesting gameplay as well, which would fit the overall concept of the game, allow each player the participation of all types of equipment in a single battle. The US, Great Britain, and Japan had indisputable superiority over the USSR in the number of aircraft carriers, which immediately deprives the USSR of that class of vehicle from the beginning. And yet, it happened not because of the technical backwardness of the Soviet Union, okay, but for the simple reason that the Soviet Union had not experienced a great need for these ships, because the main fighting took place both on land and in the air. The same can be said for Germany. Their naval power was not the greatest at the beginning of our time frame, which, by the way, is World War I. To put that into perspective, Germany was considered one of the major naval powers all the way up through World War II. Pro tip. But how do we explain to the many players across the world who still want to be the best? Make no mistake, many players use the Soviet and German nations in the game. Interesting that Soviet isn't capitalized there, given Mother Russia and Gaijin. But anyway, at the same time, small class ships were common to all nations. And here they are, just perfect for most of the current vehicles represented in War Thunder's line of development. But wait, there is still more. Specialty. One more issue is that vessels such as battleships were used very selectively. Battles lasted for hours and even days, and often ended with the enemy retreat or not being destroyed. Moreover, ships such as the Yamato or Missouri were unique in their class, and definitely players wouldn't like to wait in queue because the single, example Yamato, for the current battle has already been taken, or dozens of battleships in one battle without a supporting fleet will be clumsy and easy to target for aircraft. All of this assumes that somebody hasn't done this. Of course, we don't want to bring them back into this discussion, do we? But, as with all things, there's still yet more. So this is the long thread that has started now over on the War Thunder forums, precisely for the Knights of the Sea launch trailer. And we don't even have to get 3 posts in for somebody to point out, it's just an early game, guys. Please don't complain. This thread isn't a complain thread. This is where you can get your ideas out and or questions. Discuss the War Thunder naval combat. So please keep it civil and respectful. Thanks. Salute. It doesn't take but 2 posts for a person to get warned. As asked before, can you please stop complaining and take part in discussion beneficial to naval battles? Oh, 10 kilometers. You do know that 15-inch naval guns, 28 and 37 kilometers, this is what the developers mean when they say the maps would be huge. Please watch your language. Oh, but wait, they just keep going. There's more and more and more and more and more and more and more of. There are 31 pages of people complaining about the absence of the larger capital ships, the destroyers, cruisers, battleships, and aircraft carriers that so many people want to play. And Gaijin seems to think that putting them into this game would make the game boring and unrealistic and all of that. Now, if you've played War Thunder, especially in the aircraft games, in the realistic mode or historical battles mode, you'll know that they tossed out many elements of realism. Although there are lots of elements of realism, they tossed out many of the elements of realism specifically for gameplay. Does that sound like an entirely another game company to you? Yeah, so there are options out there in order to throw these ships into this game and make it work. And I don't mean to keep bringing up World of Warships as if, for some odd reason, this game has to measure up to World of Warships. Quite the contrary. In fact, many of us that have waited since War Thunder first came out for the true combined operations games, where we had tanks, aircraft, and ships all competing in one match to accomplish objectives, are shoehorned into our naval gameplay being PT boats, maybe destroyers, maybe cruisers, but don't count on it. Really? Really? Oh, but we'll go ahead and we'll throw these other large ships still in the game. Well, if they're already in the game, what point does it matter if it's controlled by an AI or if it's controlled by a person? If anything, I want the thing controlled by a person because, as we've seen in World of Warships, players are a heck of a lot better at responding to dynamic situations than AI ever will be, and a player has a better opportunity to not only respond to those changes in the battle, but also influence the battle in ways that AI can't anticipate. So, don't tell me that, well, because of all the distances involved, that we're not going to be able to make it work. Does Wargaming, or does Gaijin forget that the longest accurate naval hit was like 28 kilometers? I mean, that's really not that infeasible. That's really not that unreasonable. And yes, Wargaming with World of Warships had to compress distances to make everything work together. I am totally okay with that. But let's talk about that more specifically. So, Gaijin seems to think that this, getting into a game and having to wait because there was only 2 of these class of battleships built and launched as this configuration, that for some odd reason we can't have these things in War Thunder. Why? I have yet to see of a single person in wargaming in World of Warships complain about the fact that there are 4 Yamatos in one battle, or 8 Iowas, or any Montanas for that fact, because paper ship. I have yet to see anybody complain about those existing in the game. So if nobody's complaining about them in this game, why all of a sudden are we going to Gaijin and Gaijin's going, we don't want it. We don't want people to wait because there were only 2 Yamatos ever, and if there are only 2 Yamatos and they never were used in really any battles except for a handful of engagements and left in port, we don't want people to play those. That's not what the video game is about. That's not what your arcade mode was about. Yes, there's historical battle and realistic battles in War Thunder, and people who want to play those are willing to play and wait for specific games to play their one specific ship. But the vast majority of players for War Thunder aren't in historical battles or aren't in the realistic battles. They're in arcade. Guess what World of Warships is? It's an arcade game. We're not asking for a simulator where, because there was only 2 Yamatos ever built and launched as battleships, we can only have 2 Yamatos in a game, or we can only have 2 of them in any of the battles, or only 2 of the Tirpitz or Bismarck class of battleships, or 4 of the Iowas, or 0 Montanas because they didn't exist in real life. We're not asking for that, Gaijin. We're asking to play the ships. That's all we're asking to do. That's all we are asking to do. And the fact that you aren't going to let us do that really frustrates me. And then to go on to say that there's no way to incorporate these into the battle. Well, here's a shocking idea. World of Warships exists. Navy Field 2 exists. You've had years to look at what they were doing in World of Warships and in Navy Field 2 and build your own game to take the best of both games and combine it into one game. You had that opportunity, and as far as I'm concerned, you really screwed it up. You had the perfect opportunity to build the game that we all wanted, which fixed all the issues with the imbalance issues in World of Warships, and fixed all the gameplay and hyper arcadey elements of Navy Field 2. I'm really disappointed. Legitimately disappointed. I had long waited for naval combat to come to War Thunder, and now that I've seen it, I don't want it. I'm not going to buy into the closed beta. If I get invited, great. If I don't, well, tough luck, I guess. I'm not going to buy into it. And when the open beta comes out, I might try it just because, I've played War Thunder, and I'm curious to see how PT boats play out. But as much as I'd love to see PT boats and playing around in PT boats just for the grins of it all, I'm not convinced that it's something that I really want to do. It's not the ships that I see and read about and want to play. I want to play the Yamatos, the Montanas, the Iowas, the Fletchers. I want to play the Bismarcks and the Tirpitzes and the Scharnhorst and the Gneisenau. I want to play those ships, guys. I want to play those ships because these are the ships that I have dreams about. These are the ships where I want, and every time I step foot on one of them, I get goosebumps of just how awesome these ships were. PT boats were great, and they played a pivotal role in World War II, but please, please, please don't shoehorn me into playing just them. I really don't think it's going to be that interesting of a gameplay aspect. Guys, this has been Whiskey with Whiskey's Gaming Lounge. If you've got comments, criticisms, throw them down in the comments section. I want to hear what you guys think of the new trailer for War Thunder's Knights of the Sea. And as always, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching.